Shadiverse.
Greetings, I'm Shad.
And greetings, I'm Tyranth.
And so we have a bit of an interesting, and I would even say important video for anyone who wants to buy a katana, because there are some kind of buyer beware points that we want to raise in this video in regards to what you're actually getting for your dollar.
Value proposition. Now, the reason why this is important, and me and Shad were kind of debating this off camera, is manufacturers will get upset at us for things that we say in reviews, and I have a lot of strong opinions. And this is not even the only topic that I can talk about, Shad. There are other. The point is, I am more than happy to tell you guys the truth, which sometimes these companies don't like.
There is different metrics to gauge swords on, though, which I want to also bring up, because it varies, and there are things that add a lot of price to a sword that a lot of people won't even notice or appreciate, but it does add money. It makes it a more expensive sword.
Well, let us know what you guys think at the end once we've gone through everything. So here we have a bunch of different katana handles that have broken off. Oh, not broken off. We've broken the swords and taken them off.
After destruction testing.
Yeah, so you would have seen a lot of these in reviews, and the price points for all of these is unbelievably different. However, the differences between them is so minute that you wouldn't understand. And I
would say minute to the untrained eye. That's what I mean. I don't think a lot of people will appreciate those differences, but there are differences.
Are there? Because why Shad want to do this episode?
There's one example where I don't think there is much of a difference.
I said, Shad, here, what's the difference between this Suba and this one? Because the price points between them is over $1,000.
That's the overall sword. It's not the Subas that I feel is jacking up the price so much, but it is true to the untrained eye. These tubers.
My eye is trained in this, especially when it comes to manufacturing and this sort of thing. They are the same thing. They are $5 Subas. That's the manufacturing cost around about there, and then like $20 you can buy them online.
They're basic brass ones. Look, they do look nice. These are nice Subas, but the actual cost to get them really is super, super cheap. This Suba belongs to a $200-300 sword, US.
Yeah.
This Suba belongs to a $1,700 sword.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, that isn't actually a thing that's jacking up the price between the swords.
Sure, usually it will be the blade, but the issue I have with this is when you buy like a $500, $600, $700 US katana, the fittings are often very lackluster, which doesn't make sense because, for example, we're gonna use as the baseline for today's episode a Romance of Men.
This is from their custom katana builder, and I got to pick all their fittings, everything, and it came in, I think it was under 300 still.
Yeah, but keep in mind their baseline one, which has identical blade, is like 200.
Yeah.
And this is the handle for it here.
This is the handle for their baseline one.
Which, when you look at it, it's also very similar.
Pretty equivalent. Okay.
This comes with real race skin, a very tight wrap. You get to pick the fittings if you do the custom one, and the blade on it. First off, you can get an engraving as well. Then the blade is actually really good in terms of its performance. You guys have seen it. We've smashed it against a bunch of different stuff.
It's a standard spring steel. Yeah. Okay. So this raises a good question. What are you getting out of for your dollar in comparison from this sword to this one, which we got from Sword Is?
Yes.
This is valued, comes at $1,700. Now, I want to put a caveat on this, all right? Because I felt we should compare apples to apples, where this isn't actually apples to apples. I selected the most expensive options you could get on this because I wanted to see if it's worth the dollar, really.
Sure, yep.
I just went to the Sword Is website and I did the opposite. I said, all right, let's try and reconstruct this sword with their affordable or budget options.
Right.
I was able to pick spring steel, which, and if spring steel is usually good, same length, similar colors. I didn't get like a full wrap on the race skin, just a panel race skin, which is what this one most likely has. Came in at 300.
For the same blade?
It was not the same steel. I got their standard spring steel. In this length, though, with a bohie.
That's fine.
That's a good price.
We have to test the blade, but relatively speaking, I think that is a reasonable price.
It is. What's the difference between that one and this one?
The blade.
everything actually. I picked all the premium options.
You said you made the same sword, right?
No, the same size sword. The same, like to the untrained eye, if they were looking at it, it's like that looks like an equivalent sword in terms of size, but not the actual selected options. Where even the scabbard on this, it takes like 2 weeks to cure. It's a special type of paint. That jacks up the price. Premium polishing on the blade jacked it up a lot. The steel quality jacked it up a lot. The silk here and here is imported Japanese silk. Now this is the thing. I think for the casual consumer, all of the things I'm mentioning doesn't mean anything. It's only for, I guess, what, the collector that wants like all that this stuff matters to. I don't think this stuff is going to actually matter too much to most people. Maybe,
but let me put it this way. You chose the premium, the high
everything
premium on this. And it's still a $20 Suba. It's still a $20 Habaki.
The Suba, okay, looks very equivalent, but if you actually have a look at the quality of the casting on the two ends, this has a much finer grain specific casting. Like these actually are higher quality.
What we're talking about though is you're going from a $200 sword, something like this, $300 sword, bang for your buck. Yeah. This is worth it, genuinely. To a nearly $2,000.
$1,700. It's 2,000 for us in Australia.
If we round up, that's 2,000.
I don't know, 300. Like if it was 1,900, I think we could round up.
Import taxes, shipping.
For Australia, if you convert into Australia, this is almost a $3,000 sword in Australian dollars. Okay.
Is that worth it by any metric? And then when we tested the S5,
to the average consumer, I would say no.
But even as a collector, right? If you're collecting katanas, I would assume that you're collecting real katanas, quote unquote.
What do you mean by real katanas?
You know what we're talking about. Katanas manufactured in Japan, made by smiths, by hand, hand-forged, folded, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's what I would assume a real collector would want. These are still within the realm of this.
Well, performance-wise, yes. And this is where we raise a very important point, because I was almost going to try and call this is like the Ferrari of swords, but it's not a fair comparison there, because a Ferrari is a specifically built machine that performs vastly higher than most other cars, and that's why it's so much more expensive.
Supercar, yeah.
Where the sword that I built on the sword is website, right? That would come in for about $300. We know the different performances of the grades of steel that you can get. Spring steel usually always performs better.
Yes, but
and for this size sword it would.
Yes, but heat treating is also like so
crucial.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, and that you have to determine between manufacturer.
Yes.
And we have qualified the Romance of Men spring steel as being pretty damn good, honestly.
Bang on. Yeah.
We haven't confirmed the sword is spring steel, but if it comes in as good, right? You can get a $300 sword that to the untrained eye is pretty equivalent to this. That might actually perform even better.
The problem, keep in mind, we also have more examples. If we're talking specifically about sword, is that what you want to talk about? The lotus flower one and the straight versus curved video. I checked them. They are $300, those swords. So right in the bang of this with fake ray skin and lower quality casting like that.
This is true, because you can find much inferior, cheap swords that are being sold for the same price.
Exactly.
Which is why we've been really impressed with the Romance of Men one.
And that's why we'll recommend it when we get the chance, because for bang for your buck, it's actually good. In the S5 Katana review, I thought it was a different price. I didn't know how expensive it was. That changes my entire opinion of it.
Because when we're reviewing swords, especially on the rating board, we said we're not going to count in price for its overall quality, and we just rate it on its quality on its own.
Sure, but I said at the end, I think for that price, as a cutter, it's actually not bad. But if it's not that price, then that's a different story entirely. Because if you can get the $300 string steel one, then I would say go get that 100%, not the $2,000 one. So I don't see the value in it, specifically this one.
Well, that's the point of the video, is that, and I said, for the average consumer, I don't think that they would want to go for this, because they could get a sword that performed potentially even better. The look of the surface, it looks just as nice, even though the silk will be cheaper. It's not a full ray skin wrap. There are some fittings that actually do have higher detail in its casting. This is a premium type of painted scabbard that takes ages to cure. The wood, everything. Okay, so there is a quality difference. There is an actual objective quality difference here. But most people aren't going to appreciate that. They want a sword that just does the job of a sword.
But even if you have them, and we have all these examples right in front of us, the differences between this $3,000 one versus this $1,700 one versus this $200 one are so minute that...
Well, it's not just the handles that's causing the price difference.
But it's indicative of the whole thing. For example, this $3,000 sword was made traditionally, and we absolutely obliterated it on PVC piping.
This is true. It is the highest quality handle that we have out of them all.
Sure.
It is.
Sure.
But does that justify the price? No, I don't think it does.
But what does high quality mean to you? Because when I hold this handle, it's not bad, but I think that's more comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I mean. When you say
the quality
high,
is literally the silk that they use in the wrap. There's an ultra-laying kind of braided pattern on it, which is actually takes a lot more effort. And the fittings actually have, it's not just cast out of one thing, it's silver and everything. And
the fittings on them are very high quality. They look manufactured for that specific piece, which at that price point, you should expect. So that's the important part. I still find this more comfortable than this.
So, see, the silk feels nicer on this.
Yeah, but the handle shape, the
geometry
of it.
No, this one I actually like almost twice as much. Like this is one of the things that actually I love about this sword. This is the nicest silk I've ever felt on a katana, and it's a premium option to get this special Japanese silk. And I got to admit, it feels gorgeous.
It feels gorgeous, but I want grip when I'm actually using my sword.
But I want comfort.
That's too soft.
This
is very soft.
See, this is, I love the softness, and so I guess. Personal preference then, but I do think there is a tactile, noticeable difference in the extra money you're paying for it, but does it justify the amount extra?
Exactly.
I don't actually think so.
I don't think so too. And I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here, Shad,
All
and Shad's going to get mad at me for it, but the only katana we've gotten in recent memory that I would genuinely recommend to people is the Romance Men ones. All these other, because we've been getting a lot of katanas lately, Shad. And
but that's based on price point. We have gotten quality katanas. We have.
Yes.
Look, this is a friggin' gorgeous katana.
It is gorgeous. But for the price, I would never spend that money on that.
Yeah.
Would you ever? All right, step it outside to the viewer's perspective. Would you ever spend your personal money on any of these swords? Which one would you spend your money on?
Well, this is a tough one actually, because here's the thing. Let's put a caveat in here, right? Could you hold this? So this sword is katana, is actually equivalently priced as this Lockwood longsword. In terms of quality, manufacturing quality, the end thing, they're actually kind of equivalent.
Sure.
How precise the lines are on the blade, all right? There's precision machining done on them both. The scabbards are both very high quality. The fittings are precise and perfect, okay? And so the interesting thing that kind of comes in is that you can actually get a really good katana for a lot cheaper than you can find really good longswords.
Yes.
This is just the reality.
I think if you wanted, you could probably get a really, really nice katana for like $600 US, and it could be like almost exactly how you want it, right?
Yeah.
The longsword equivalent of that, even in like the $500 range, they're good. They're good. Fit and finish is good, but they're not to the same level of like this.
They're not pristine. Like a truly pristine level longsword or medieval sword, you're in the range of $1,000 at least, usually. Okay, and that's the interesting thing. I genuinely love this sword, much more than Tyranth. The thing that blew me away is its precision and its weight profile, and I've just never seen that on a katana. I love the length, and so I still think it's probably a bit overpriced, but I could get a sword that gives me the jollies just as much and cut down some of those premium options that I don't need. I don't need the premium scabbard. Or I have to admit, I really love the silk. I don't need the premium steel. I'd be happy with spring steel on this.
But keep in mind, we're just comparing to these results here. Think back to when we got the $1,000 katana.
Okay, there are other.
Is that worth it?
Okay, so
what about the? I can't remember what company it is. The blue one we got.
Yeah. That one had like authentic either steel or differential hardening on it. Okay,
But the fittings
those two
on that
ones,
were-
those two ones that you bring up are a good point, because this sword I feel actually has more redeeming qualities that help its price, not perfectly. Like I said, I think I would actually take down the price by picking different things. Okay, but then there are other expensive katanas that I think are just not worth the money at all.
That's a very good point, because remember, you custom made that one.
Yes.
So imagine now you don't get to custom make it, and you have to spend $1,700 on a katana.
Because bear in mind, that also jacks up the price, because this is a custom selected sword. They have to custom make it, they even have to order away for parts, they have to sit in the scabbard away, and so that jacks it up as well. Custom swords will always be more expensive than ones that are mass made, ordered in bulk. And so I wonder if they mass made ordered this in bulk. This might come into what, 1,400 maybe? You'd be surprised what you can save when you order things in bulk.
Yeah, but I'm dubious on that price to begin with.
Well, you know, they have a profit margin. We don't know how excessive it is. This is a good point. Especially changing it to spring steel, because spring steel is a shockingly affordable and really high quality.
Yep.
That would bring the cost down probably under 1,000 then.
That's still a lot, but I would be much more willing to pay that. Like, for example, when you said that was 700 US, I'm like, I don't know if I buy it just because it snapped. But I am much more in the realm of maybe I would get that, maybe.
Yeah. It's because they said that one sword was close to that price, and then I got it mixed up. But we corrected it for the review, so don't worry about that. So it is a more complex topic, right? But it is interesting that there are some very expensive katanas, not necessarily this one, and we have the examples right here.
So this one was around 1,000.
1,000.
Something I really did like about this one actually was the blade profile. We kind of ruined the tip a bit, but it was so nice there. I know it's not the one you like, it's the opposite. This one here,
2,000.
Sheesh.
And it was 2,000 because it has it's an more exact type of differential hardening, like proper clay tempering, I think, on this,
right.
As well as it might even do some different grades of steel in terms of the Honsanmai construction. I need to double check that.
Now, 2,000 for this. These Subas and stuff are worse than like these ones.
We're talking about, like, you know, this one is from what, a $200 sword?
Yeah, something like that.
And the wrap, nothing special about it.
No, at least it does look like that is real ray skin at the very least. And the habaki there, like it's the same
like
as
everything here.
There's that one.
You know, everything here is actually super cheap fitting, still good quality, but you find them on $200 swords, right?
Yeah.
These are the fittings that they've put on a $2,000 sword, and then on top of that, its performance was pretty junk.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where the value proposition comes for you guys. It's like, is this worth $2,000? I personally would never pay $2,000 for this sword.
Do you think it is edging on like scam territory?
No, because it is what they say it is.
But there is a buyer beware thing, because there are cheap stuff on this sword.
Yeah.
That doesn't belong on a $2,000 sword.
Yeah. And then the $1,000 one, I mean, that one is probably the closest I've been to, you know what, maybe this isn't too bad. Not because the blade was super high performance. It is a folded steel blade, which is nice. I really like the geometry of it. But all of this, again, is all the same sort of stock standard finish. The only reason why I would ever consider buying this one is because that blade is actually really nice.
It has a nicer silk.
It does.
This has a nicer silk.
But
Man,
that's not worth it. Again, Suba, Habaki.
Like this one, we've literally seen on super cheap swords. Like,
Yeah. So this is probably the closest I've gotten to, like, you know what, this isn't too bad. I probably wouldn't buy it for $1,000 US. I'd get a nice long sword or something. And then I brought this one out just for good measure. This is a recent one. I don't know, it was Katana Us?
Sword Katana. US or Us.
This here is $300 and something, maybe $340.
Came very damn sharp.
I mean,
Very sharp.
we get that choice with most
But
manufacturers
that
now.
was standard. This is actually shaving sharp.
But now this Suba is even cheaper than all the others.
It is.
This is fake ray skin, and this wrap is like serviceable
And it's actually more expensive than this one here.
than the Romance of Men, yeah. Which is why I felt like it's important to talk about these things.
It is. It actually is. And not many people would be aware that, you know, $1,700 sword, 300 solar sword. There are sometimes fittings that are like completely identical. There were other things that made the price difference, and remember, some of those things are optional.
Yes, and we understand, obviously, getting a different blade steel, something exotic, different geometry, blah, blah, it brings up the price, sure, but does that actually translate to value? Personally, I don't think so. The closest we've ever gotten to that is the S5 one there, but if they offer that in spring steel, then I would just get the spring steel. That's much more reasonable.
Yeah,
I like the blade profile in the blade, not the metal.
Yeah.
So,
like, because this is still probably one of my favorite katanas, not my favorite katana. There are options on it that I think are redundant, and I wouldn't pick them because it doesn't add to the value to me. The type of scabbard, the actual steel type of the sword, but there are other things that I love about it. And so it really depends on what you as a consumer value and want. You don't want to accidentally pay for a more expensive sword that has things added to it that, one, might not be any better than cheaper swords, or two, you don't actually give a crap about.
yeah.
Don't pay for things that you don't want. You just need to be aware of it. Hence why we're making the video.
And this is something that I don't really think we would make on a longsword, because longswords are usually custom fittings for that custom sword. You don't really have the same sort of territory. With katanas, a lot of these are mix and match.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about katanas, because they are a bit more modular in terms of the standard fittings, and they're more popular, so there's more people making those fittings.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these fittings that people can buy stock standard at much cheaper prices when they're actually really good quality, okay? And so it's hard to all right, this has got great casting, it's got good detail, it's got a nice pattern on it. This is just as high a quality as this crossguard. Some might even say more because it has an interesting pattern on it, but this is actually really strong steel, and there's other elements about it, and it's very refined.
They're also harder to make.
They are harder to make. Well, actually, good point there as well, okay? And so because, one, there's not as many mass producers making heaps of crossguards that people can pick between, they need to be kind of custom made, fitted to the sword. It's harder to find as high quality long swords in as cheaper prices as you can find katanas these days.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I am on a quest to find the best, cheap long swords, and two have caught my eye that I want to get in to just try out.
Right.
Because I want to find the equivalent of essentially what we found with the Romancer Men katana, a super affordable, brilliant quality longsword.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Have you actually been really disappointed with a katana you bought? You paid too much for it, didn't have the quality. Also, what do you value? Okay.
And if you guys want, we'll do another episode of this on something similar that has annoyed me for a very long time that will expose another industry, and I'll do that too. Because I don't care anymore. It's annoying.
It's ready to burn it all. The other thing I'm genuinely interested is what people value, because we generally preference performance.
Yes, I want my sword to be a sword.
And that should actually be a pretty good standard. Like, a sword should be able to perform well as a sword and survive a decent amount of abuse. It seems like sometimes we might not give enough credit to the quality of weight distribution, weight profile,
They're all
fittings
so
and things
similar,
like that.
Though. That's the difference between, I would say, katanas and longswords. Is a lot of katanas feel very similar. Are they identical? No, there are some small differences, but when you pick up that Lockwood versus you pick up like a Honshu, they are two entirely different things.
Yes, this is
so there's
very
much
refined.
more to comment on.
But that's
with
kind
a
of-
katana, it's like, this one's slightly a little bit heavier towards the tip. But that's the most you can go.
But for me, I got that feeling difference with this versus a standard katana.
But how common is this? We get a
is
lot
not-
of katanas like this.
Yeah.
This one here, that one, and this one here, all almost
all
feel
the same, exactly.
identical.
But that's what I mean. That's why I was so impressed by this one, because it was genuinely different,
Yes.
and I felt better. Still a bit too expensive, but you can bring those costs down on some of the redundant things you don't need.
Sure.
Do you value performance, or are some of these bells and whistles that you think would justify the price for you? Oh, I want that premium silk, I want the premium painting on the scabbard. Let us know. I'm genuinely interested. And why don't you check out our full review on this gorgeous sword? It's an exclusive review, let's say. It's right there, and I do love it. It's just expensive.
very expensive. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys.